Hi, I'm Carolyn, and with the ppl.Kickstarter, I help startups, scale-ups, and SMEs in tech to manage people well, to craft company culture intentionally, and to maximize impact with compelling communications along both. Because with the power of these three, you pull your team together long-term and are able to build a long-lasting, successful company. Welcome to the People and Culture Stories podcast. And in today's episode, we will talk with Klara Zürcher from Tadah. It's, what is it? It's a co-working space. It's a magazine. It's a movement, I would say.
Yeah, I think, to summarize it, our vision is to make Switzerland more compatibility friendly. And then we deliver lots of different services, products, and things that all help us achieve this vision that we're looking to get to.
That sounds great. More family-friendly working situations,
yes,
in a sense.
So more family-friendly. I mean, if you look at it in a wider sense, just more, we call it not work-life balance, but actually work-life inclusion, because balance always makes you think of two things that need to equal out and kind of balance each other. Meaning if you have more of this, more private life, less career, and that's not really going to make anybody happy at the end of the day. So the way you need to look at it nowadays is look at it at, work-life inclusion. It's all part of one of your life.
Yeah.
And, different aspects of your life have different maybe weighting or priorities at certain time. But at the end of the day, you're one person and you have one life, and your work is part of that one life.
It's very true. I like that you call it inclusion, not integration. Mm-hmm. I always struggle how to translate that, because in German you would say integration.
Mm-hmm.
But it's
work-life integration, work-life inclusion.
But I like inclusion actually better.
Maybe
because
we need to recoin it.
I like it better because integration, it sounds for me a bit more like a task, something that you really need to put these things together in a sense. But
sometimes it feels
inclusion
that way though, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It
so
is
for me,
just
it's
part of your whole, but you need to somehow get a way of, first of all, just being transparent with the fact that, you're a better person at work thanks to your private life, thanks to your personal interests, thanks to your kids. Those are all things that are going to make you, a different and a better person in a sense, a more interesting, a more versatile, a more knowledgeable person. And I think that's really where there needs to be a mindset shift, because it really is something which is often still viewed as, especially having family and kids, almost as a negative component, something that you need to hide, something that you shouldn't be talking about in your workplace, something that is not supposed to have any influence on the way you are able to work. Because right away, the assumption is that your career isn't that important to you anymore now that you have kids, or, just kind of things like that. So I think it's really important that a mindset shift happens in terms of that.
So the co-founder team of Tadah, you all have kids?
Yes.
Okay, so your mission is very close to your hearts.
Yes, and that's how we started.
Yeah, and every startup, I think, would say we're mission-driven.
Yes.
But I feel like you are very much mission-driven because it's your own story, right? And based on your own needs.
That's really how it started. So it really began with us all having, leadership positions in our previous lives before we had kids, having children, and realizing how difficult we found it. And then realizing, oh, wait, I'm not the only one. Others find it difficult too. And at the same time, the realization that there wasn't any solutions really being provided, or at least not any solutions that felt timely, that felt, pertinent to the way a lot of people work today, which is very flexibly. And, it's great that we have daycares. We have lots of great daycares, but often they're very, very rigorous in the structures. There's not a lot of flexibility. And at the same time, so much flexibility is expected from parents at work. And we just felt like there needs to be some sort of solution there. And we really started with our magazine, which was just about inspiring others. So kind of asking the question, how do you do it?
Yeah.
How do you fit your career, your parenting under the same hat? How do you manage it? And then, developing the journey towards wanting to really do something and make a difference and provide solutions and not just write about it.
Yeah.
And that's really where we took the next step. But really from the beginning, our mission has always been very close to our heart and has always remained the same.
Yeah. Has it? It is. Okay. The mission has remained the same. I would expect, and we will dive deeper into that the way you're gearing towards your mission has changed, though, right?
Very
With
much
your
so.
journey. So I'm very excited to dive deep into that journey.
Yeah.
So it started with this idea you wanted to do something more. How did you go about it? Did you instantly say, "Hey, we have this idea of a co-working space.
No.
Let's go fundraise"?
We had lots of ideas.
How
we
did
had
you
lots
find
of really crappy ideas, but it was just, I think, we started working together in 2016 and we realized that we work really well together.
Yeah.
And we always just felt that this topic was just getting more and more important as time was going on. But of course, we did get to a point where we were all having our other jobs. We all had a family. We were all working on Tadah yet. I mean, we were, just working like crazy nights and evenings and weekends and not making that much money. And it really got to the point where we just knew we had to make a decision that was, how are we able to continue on with our mission with Tadah, but actually do it in a way which is sustainable also for us. And, that's really when we started thinking about, how are we going to actually make money without sacrificing our values? Because that's the difficulty when you have a magazine that you're building up. You don't want to just take any advertising client, and you don't want to just be writing these Publi-Reportagen where you're just basically making an advertisement in text for them. So, there was a lot of kind of realizations along the way, and just a realization that the magazine alone was not going to be able to provide us with the possibility to continue on with our mission. Also, it was not going to provide the solution that we wanted to. And we thought of lots of different ideas, and this idea of what I mentioned before, not having enough flexibility in our childcare. One of our founders is from Germany, and she has no family here, neither on her husband's side, also no family here. So, it was so difficult when we had meetings that were, not scheduled, when her child was, really, really small. It was just so difficult to find ways to make it work. And that's really when we felt like, come on, there needs to be a solution and it should be possible. And this idea popped up, and then it was very much like, okay, let's just try this. And, there was some sort of write-up to hand in your business idea for, some venture firm. And we just kind of wrote up a business idea within a weekend, handed it in, and the resonance was really good. I mean, we didn't get funding or anything, but we got good feedback. And that's when the spark was really lit, and we really felt like, okay, this is where we need to focus on, and this is what we need to try.
Wow, awesome. So from the need to monetize and the desire to have a bigger impact, you started digging into or looking into other ways, threw yourself out there and got a positive response, and that triggered the journey where you are today. Yeah. That's awesome.
And it really, I think one important aspect was really speaking with people who could advise us, who maybe had funded a startup, who were business owners, who were parents and entrepreneurs. And that's what we did. We actually went away for a weekend and had a friend who is an investor now and even has his kids at our space and works with his team at our space. Exactly.
There we go. Awesome.
Who came and joined us for, one evening on this weekend. And we just pitched ideas to him. And this is really the idea with the co-working space with flexible childcare, where he said, even though I don't have kids right now, I feel like this idea has a lot of potential. And, then he told us, okay, this is what you guys need to do. Like, this is a template for, a pitch presentation. You make a pitch presentation, you make a teaser deck, and then you start going out there. And it was just, invaluable of having somebody who, with that knowledge, supporting us in those early stages and really providing, feedback on the go and really letting us test out what we were going to pitch to investors then.
Wow. And he's still on the board today. Your advisory board is quite impressive. You have Janina Kugel, Nadine Jürgensen, Hannes Gasse, Gian.
Yeah.
How did you know? I mean, from that moment, you knew that advisors are valuable. How did you know that you wanted to build such a prestigious board? And how has it impacted your journey and also your, pivoting, I guess? We want to talk about that later. During COVID, everything shut down, and where you went afterwards. How did the board help you with that?
I think, there's kind of two aspects. I mean, the board, the knowledge, but also what you say, exactly what you said, an impressive board, right? When you're looking for investors and you have you're 4 young women, you're starting in a new industry, which maybe is also something which is, not a typical fintech startup. It's really helpful to have people who have your back that, are viewed as very, reliable with a lot of knowledge. So, of course, there's that aspect where it just makes it valuable to have a good advisory board, a solid advisory board, because it gives, the investors, the companies you might work with, confidence. Yeah. And then there's, of course, the fact of just having like a larger team. So not just your micro team, but actually a larger team of people with different knowledge, with more knowledge, with knowledge in different fields. Also people which are not always so deep in the topic as we are, so often we'll have a misconception about something like, oh, everybody knows Tadah, or, well, it's clear that this is what we need to, go in with as an argument. And somebody that is a little bit further out, but still very knowledgeable about your business is going to give you really great insights as to maybe, no, you need to first give this information before they're going to understand what you want to talk about, or just kind of those kind of inputs, which is really helpful. Awesome. And of course, through the pandemic, it was super helpful having people in our board or in our advisory circle to spar things with, to also, in some way help us just kind of calm down. Of course, we felt extremely nervous when the pandemic hit. We had just opened up and we're closing down again, and we had employees and, very high overhead costs. I mean, we're not just a business which functions on knowledge. We have rent to pay, we have salaries to pay. So really, it was really helpful to have people that were able to kind of, calm us down, give us advice, and help us move in the right direction.
Yeah. So it's a very actively used board.
No.
No.
I have to be honest. We do it much too little.
Okay.
If there was advice I was going to give myself, use your board more. I feel like it's something every year we talk about it. We need to utilize our board more. And that's something I would also advise everybody else to do. But you're so often caught up in the daily business. Just, doing things, moving at a very fast pace. But, we do. I mean, we do use it, but we could use it more. Yeah. We're lucky enough, like I said, that not just John, but some of our other investors work in our space. And that makes it quite easy, right? You can just say, hey, can we have lunch together and kind of spar an idea with you guys? Yeah. But I would definitely give us the advice to use our great advisory board more than we do. Love your honesty. I was about to ask, okay, how do we structure that you really have this active influence of your board, but now you... Well, we try to, we split it up in terms of who is responsible for, or, who is really in contact with which people from the advisory board, also structured, of course, in terms of the questions we would ask the different people. But I'm going to be honest, we just don't use it enough. It's always on our OKRs for the future.
Oh, that's good. That's a good learning, though. Yeah. And that takes me to the next topic, where I think there's a close connection as well, because you mentioned your investors quite a few times. How did you start fundraising? And can you share a bit about your journey and what were your experiences, how you found your own voice during that process as well?
Well, the first really important piece of information we got was tell everybody about your idea, even if you don't have all the details worked out. Because, the natural inclination is to say, I'm not going to tell any about it because somebody might steal it. It's not ready. Or somebody might steal it, or it's not ready. And that was something that John really told us, like, just talk to everybody about it and just see what the feedback is. And then the second thing was utilize your network. And I think in general, that's something that women don't do enough and don't do as good as men do it. Mm-hmm. I feel that there's a lot of change happening there, but even research kind of shows that. And also, I think we might have more trouble asking for money. Like, it just felt so hard to ask people for money. But that was really one important piece of advice. Like, utilize your network. Just think of people that you know. Mm-hmm. Just talk to them. I mean, just even somebody that might not be somebody that's an investor, but they might know people that could be interested. Right. And that's really how we found the various people, because we never did one of those conventional kind of, venture capital pitches where you stand up on stage, pitch your idea, just because that was also advice that we received. Our idea isn't really made for that. Mm-hmm. It's an idea which, is it's not your typical hockey stick startup. Right. So it's really something which you also need to buy into the vision and the idea. Not necessarily because you're a parent, but also maybe because you're an entrepreneur yourself and you have parents working for you. Right. For lots of various reasons, but really something that you need to buy in on a larger scale. Yeah. So, we really just started going for lunch with people. And luckily enough, the first person we went for lunch with offered us quite a large sum of money. So it was like, oh my God.
Wow.
Whoa. Okay, he said yes.
Totally
he ended up actually pulling out. Okay. But I think to look at it on the bright side, it gave us a lot of confidence in that moment to continue on with the idea. Yeah. And, we were able to, we always kind of heard this statistic of, average, that's the thing I heard at the time, an average of 9 months to get the money together. And I think it took us 7 to get the money together that we needed, which, was a big success. But it was also, we had a lot of goes in the beginning, and then we kind of had this dry spell where we went for lunch and, we got no's and that was hard because once you're in that journey, you just want to go, like you're ready to start working, and it's hard then to get through that and hard to not lose your motivation, but we pulled through.
Did you doubt your idea during those times where nothing really moved forward? Or was it more like, no, I know this is going to work? Because it's a question I always ponder about myself. Sometimes it's ignorance and sometimes it's grit. So you can easily say, no, it's going to be fine. I will do this. Mm-hmm. I have this confidence. I have the positive feedback. I will not give up. I keep going. And then you go, and it will never happen. Mm-hmm. And instead of 6 months, you waste 12 months. Of course, we always learn during that time. Or is it really like, no, I just need to pull through this time?
I do feel like we didn't lose the confidence in our idea because we did already have quite a large sum together. Mm-hmm. We just had a bit missing yet. So it's just, we had a lot of...
Close to the finish line.
Exactly. We were close to the finish line.
That's something different.
So we had a lot of vote for confidence already. Yeah. And... I feel to this day, it's not, I think we're very flexible in terms of rethinking how we go about achieving our goals. But we always felt that the goal that we were working towards was important to this day. And we always really, really, really believed in it. Yeah. And I think it also always helped that we were a team. It was never a one-man show. So even if one of us felt like giving up and everything was, this is never going to work and I can't, my energy, crying, whatever, there was always 3 other people. And luckily we never felt like we were going to give up at the same time. Yeah. Exactly. So, that's a huge benefit.
Awesome. Yeah. And then I remember at one of those Google for Startup lunch events, you shared a story where you even sent away investors.
Yes,
Tell us about it.
So we had one potential investor who basically told us, you guys need to be working full time. I need to be able to reach you 24/7, know what my money is doing. And otherwise this is not going to work. And of course, it's really difficult when you really want to get started to say no to something like that. But we just knew, and that's where it also was really helpful to have advisors in our back who also just said no. Like, having an investor is like being in a married relationship. Like, if it doesn't work in terms of your base values, like, it's not going to end well. So just, have the confidence to say no and stick to what you believe in and what feels right, and don't go with something, regardless of how much you want it or want the money, don't go with something that just, you all know it's not right.
Yeah. That's
priceless. So that was hard, but it was absolutely the right decision.
Yeah, that's priceless advice, I would say.
Yes.
Was that during the time where you were close to the finish line with that investor saying, I give you my money under condition A, B, C, D, E? Or was it like a bit easier in that sense?
I don't exactly remember when it was in the time, but it was at the point where we, had already, right in the beginning, John basically challenged some of the components of our idea, and it was really hard to let go of them. We had this huge concept planned of like a co-working space with childcare and a cafe and a yoga studio and a hairdresser and a massage and blah, blah, blah.
Library.
Like somewhere where you can live, basically. And when you leave, you're just
a home
perfectly
for parents.
relaxed. Exactly. And he was like, you need to focus on the MVP. And we're like, what? No, like it's only going to work like this. Thank goodness we were smart enough to listen to him. We did focus on the MVP. It was the only right thing to do.
So that was a big challenge to sticking to your values and core idea. Were there other challenges where you were like really tempted to go somewhere or someplace else with your product? Let's put it that way.
I think, just in general advice, it's always, you're speaking to all these potential investors and they're all coming back with questions, with input, with advice. And that's great.
Ideas.
Like, it's such a great ideas. Exactly. And it's so helpful. And after every investor pitch, we changed our presentation, not necessarily that we didn't change the base of it, of course, but we might have added on slides or made certain things more clear. So that's really, really valuable. And at the same time, you have to kind of decide, okay, but like, is this something that is right for us? Does this maybe have an impact on the core of our idea? So I think just in general, you always need to kind of take a step back, relook at it, take a moment to breathe, and then kind of take out what is really going to make your idea better. And not just kind of without thinking, just adding on, taking off and trying to adapt it to everybody's needs.
Yeah. And especially with investors, it easily happens that they bring in an idea or say you have to have another business part now. Because they just know it's gonna work. Because they've done it for such a long time, or like a million times over. And then you're kind of also obliged to do that because they're invested that much and have that power of their voice in that sense. And
that's the difficulty, I think, on knowing what is valuable and what to take as advice and what to really. Because that's also difficult, right? You're so, it's like your baby. It is. You've worked so much on this. You've spent so many hours thinking about it. You're so convinced. That's why you're able to go out and sell it, right? And then when somebody says, but hold on, like, this is not going to work. It's so hard to say. Hurts. Yeah, it hurts. And it's hard to just kind of take a second look and maybe admit that, maybe this person is right. And at the same time, what you say also not just kind of feel obliged to take any type of input and just kind of follow any type of advice.
Right. And also to know when to say no.
Yeah, maybe again, it might be cliched, but I think, in general, men might be a bit better at that, kind of just saying no. And not, not justifying it, just kind of like, no.
I was on a pitching event yesterday night, and it was 16 founders, and some of them in the idea stage. And there was one female founder, and she pitched her idea, and it was a good idea. It's not the point in where I'm headed, but then with the Q&A, somebody wanted to have an answer to something, and then another man stepped in and said, yeah, well, let me cut this short. And then she said, I can speak for myself. Great. And first I was like, wow, that's impressive. Then I was second guessing. I mean, that's my female mindset, you know, the classic behavioral bias that I have myself. And I'm pretty aware of that. I'm like, how can she? No, it's good that she does that. I'm like, good for you.
Yeah,
go girl. Yeah. Good for you.
And I think that's where we have a great mix also in our team. I mean, it's really helpful. We're such different types, but we work so well together. And we have, you know, people within our co-founders, it might be more kind of just the thinkers, or kind of maybe more easily, in the beginning at least, more easily deterred and kind of, or maybe feeling unsure. And other people that were, you know, more so the role of just let's go, let's just start it, let's just do it. And maybe also more confidence in terms of just saying, no,
not with
like
me.
This is fine. But that's where the great discussions happen, right? Internally, where we talk about things, and the one person is completely on one end of the spectrum and the other person on the other end. And we're really able to, help each other to get to a point where we maybe not always agree, but where we find, you know, it's a good way to proceed.
Yeah. Asking why. I love that. It's a very powerful question. It reminds me of kids always asking why. It can be a bit annoying, but actually it really helps you get to the root cause. I really love that method as well. To say, okay, why is it so important for you? And it's a very powerful negotiation skill as well, actually.
So true.
So you speak of your team and how complementary you are. Are you?
Very.
That's awesome. Did you know that by the time, because you said you worked together and you knew you were working well as a team, but did you already realize how complementary you are really?
Yeah, I feel like we did. I mean, you know how they say women together, there's a lot of the cliche again about like Zickenkrieg. I don't know what you call it in English. Maybe there's no word for it. There is a word for it.
There's a strong word for it.
I'm like, this is so amazing. The English don't know. Oh, yes.
They do.
We never had that. It was always very pragmatic, very supportive. And I feel like just, really good team spirit, working well together, being able to be very critical of each other, but without taking stuff personally. And yes, I mean, when we were pitching to the investors, I think pretty much all of them said, look, 50% of my investment is into the team.
Yeah.
And I can see that you guys are a good team. I feel like we were able to portray that within all our pitches. So we always made sure that we were, if possible, pitching the four of us. And that is just one of the really most important parts of making a company successful.
Beautiful. Did you translate that intentionally into your Tadah company culture?
Yes. I mean, I feel, or I know that we just are those kind of people with, you know, we just have those kind of values. So that makes it easier.
You pass them on.
None of us need to try hard to treat our employees equal, to listen to everybody's voice. Like, it's something that is natural for all of us. And it's not something which, you know, we have to write down and say, okay, it's really important that we do this. And for some of us, it's like, well, you know, I don't really agree, but fine, I'll do it. So that makes it so much easier. So I think there's a component of it just being very natural for us to have a very kind of positive, open, flat corporate culture in terms of the hierarchy. And at the same time, of course, we also think about it and, you know, place great value in it, because it's also something which we speak about with the company. So, of course, we have to live it. But it's not hard for us to live it. Let's put it that way.
What you just said about writing it down while not agreeing to it, well, it would not work out anyway. It's not authentic, and it's just going to backfire, because you cannot be 180 degrees not yourself all the time. And there will be the point in time when everything cracks.
I think especially in a small company, right? I mean, in large corporations, I mean, that's something which we talk about to companies a lot. I mean, there's just certain values which you need to embed from the top down.
Right.
Because you know what? You're always going to have different people with different cultural backgrounds, with different values that they grew out, societal norms that they've, really, internalized.
Right.
And there you need to have certain values that you just kind of, set and expect from your employees. And that's also what's important then, for every single person translating down the line.
Right.
But I feel like in a small company where everybody is so close and everybody is in touch with everybody, it's exactly what you say. It's so important that you really buy into it. And that's really the type of people which we hire as well, or try to hire, is people that also follow those kind of norms and appreciate the way we run our company.
It is the common ground that you build your company upon, like the cornerstones of a house.
Yeah.
And you cannot build that on sand or something wishy-washy.
Yeah.
But you have to have it written down. It can be adjusted in a sense, but not turned around all the time. You have to be consistent.
Yeah.
And the alignment is so important. Awesome. Beautiful. You have 16 people by now.
Yes.
Congrats.
Thank you.
5 years into the journey. 16 people. And you recently opened a daycare for a company as well.
Yes.
So something new.
Exactly.
Yeah. Looking back at all that, what you have achieved, what would you tell yourself 5 years ago when you started?
How important self-care is. So, I remember times when I was just working, not taking care of myself.
Yeah.
Because no time. And, I would now say going for a walk in the forest is going to make your spreadsheet better.
I like that.
Thinking about the idea while you're, with your kids or meditating, just kind of, passing by, not, of course, with the laptop open while you're with your kids. But those are all things which are going to contribute to the value you bring to your work life. So I think that's one really important thing, which I would tell myself to really focus on that from the start and place importance on that.
Yeah. And what else?
What else would I tell myself?
What are your biggest learnings, or where looking back 5 years and you had no idea that's
staying flexible, staying open, really just embracing the journey of, right now, this is what it looks like. This seems like the absolute right idea. Yeah, maybe 2 years later, it won't be. And then just remain open. It's cool. It's fun. It's fun to rethink something. Yeah. It's also hard work, of course. But if you want to stay relevant and if you want to achieve your goal, you need to have that flexibility of mind. Yeah. You have to remain flexible. Yeah. You have to keep on challenging yourself and embrace change.
In the journey.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Something I still would like to know is during your fundraising journey, what was the most negative experience to share that 2018 Klara did not know was coming, for sure?
You mean in the journey of fundraising, negative? Well, I mean, one negative thing was that we didn't have our co-working space with flexible childcare yet. It was so hard to make these meetings work. And that was indeed something which was, something we didn't feel empowered to say, no, Monday at noon is not going to work because two of us don't have childcare. So could you please... And then it was just like this, trying to figure out where we could place our kids, how to manage it. So not having our product yet was difficult. I think, negative, I mean, this sounds so cliche, but, the negative experience I mentioned before about somebody telling us we needed to basically be working 24/7, at the end of the day, we learned so much from that,
right?
Namely to really, stand with our values and not compromise them and really continue to place great importance on them and just kind of keep on going the way we were. I mean, it was... yeah, it was a hard experience, but that as well, right? I mean, going through that dry spell of not getting any yeses to the money that we needed was also a learning, as in, okay, we just need to pull through. Yeah. And that's the truth. Opening up a company is hard work. I mean, it's not just, we have lots of people that come from other cities and say, oh, we really want to do this co-working space and childcare, in Basel or in Zug. And, when we sit down with them and really explain to them what it takes, usually we don't hear anything anymore because it is really cool. It's really fun to do your own thing, but it's also like so many hours, so much work. Yes, disappointment. Yes, working for little money. There's all that as well. But I think, what has been such a huge achievement and such a great thing was really able to develop our product. I mean, going from the magazine to the co-working space with childcare to creating a space for Swiss Re, which we run in a totally different model where they're our client and we run the whole thing for them. And it's a huge success, right? I mean, we're basically, as of next spring, it's booked up. Like it's in such high demand. And then doing consulting work for companies, doing research papers. We published a white paper 2 years ago, working with other, with Advance, for example, working with other companies, institutions, communities to really drive the vision forward that we have.
That's awesome. Looking back, would you say it has been more difficult for you because you were all women?
I don't know.
Because you were all moms?
I don't know.
Like what you saw really happening around, or
I mean,
in the conversations, was there anything where you could say from your personal experience? Because it's not something that is out there, right? This kind of statement that people say, hey, it's harder for me because I'm a woman and I need to be twice as resilient and twice as assertive and I just need to do twice the effort and all the things.
Well, the thing is, we don't have any men in our team. So I have no grounds for comparison. It's not that we don't want any men, but, for some reason, we just have way more women applying to our company. So I don't know. I really don't know because I don't know what it would be like if I was a man pitching our idea or going to clients and selling our idea. Yeah. I mean, I don't think about it, to be honest. And you said
you were not in those pitching events or competitions. So that's typically where you see it when you are lining up and then the ones before you, they're applauded or they get easy questions. And then it's a female founder team and then they get a really tough question. Is that true? I've heard about it. I've never done it myself. I also don't treat female founders and male founders differently. Yeah. But I've heard about it. So I was really curious. Is it something that you experienced when you were pitching? You felt like, oh, these are really tough questions. They're really getting down to the nitty gritty.
But they do, right? I mean, I don't know if maybe they wouldn't if we would have been men, but they just did. And at the end of the day, it was good.
It's part of the process as well.
That we did, exactly. And anything that we were not able to answer was an eye opener, as in, okay, we need to look into this. We need to be able to answer this next time. Yep. This is a question which the investors are interested in. Yeah. So, it's just something that we never thought about. I don't ever think about it. I don't go to a client and think about the fact that it might be different for a male. It would be interesting to know, though.
Maybe you should not go down that road. I think it's very refreshing that you do not look at it that way, because it's liberating as well. You'd go in with your idea and you don't pin a label to it and say it's a female company, so this and that is going to happen. But you say, this is my mission, this is my product, this is why it's good, etc., etc. So,
and I think like the thing is, or the challenge that we face is that the research is there when it comes to what we're doing. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, every company, if they want to ensure that they're not going to run into a labor shortage or it's not going to get accelerated, if they want to make sure they can attract the Generation Z, if they want to increase the women in upper management, they need to be talking about this topic. The research is clear. The difficulty is that oftentimes it's still not a priority for whatever reason. Because like I said, the numbers are there. And it's not numbers about, oh, your parents are going to feel better. It's like the bottom line. Right. And that is where, that's challenging because it's, it's something which I think, maybe a lot of people in the C-level maybe didn't experience those challenges because it was just different, right. At that time when they had kids. So sometimes the urgency of the problem isn't quite grasped yet, I feel.
I agree.
But at the same time, we work or speak with companies where the urgency is. Look at Swiss Re. I mean, look at what they did. Look at the vision they had and the ownership to really try something like this. Yeah. And that is, I think, where we face the challenge. The topic. Yeah. The topic, which
I agree very much.
Is, like I said, so funded in research, so founded, or, the research is there. And still it's not quite understood by everyone.
Not on top of the agenda yet. Yeah.
Or at least not in a way which it should be. They all know that they need to be doing something in that field. They all have some sort of website or have a, diversity and inclusion officer. Mm-hmm. They do realize that things need to be done. But then when you go down into the nitty gritty of, well, do you guys measure the measures that you've implemented for this? Well, no, not really. Do you guys know your return on investment? No. Mm-hmm. What is your strategy? Right. And that's kind of when you uncover a lot of, maybe a lot of kind of not enough thinking in terms of what's supposed to be done and where
I think that's also related to the perception that you cannot really measure people topics or impact of benefits or results of culture activities, but you can. Mm-hmm. It's just not that the KPI repeats the words of what you did. Mm-hmm. It's just it's more pointing into a later happening result.
That's right.
The correlation.
Long term, nobody wants to hear long term.
And it's all connected. That's the other thing. It's all connected. And sometimes you could say we anticipate an increase of motivation. Motivation is measured by increase of customer satisfaction because people are delivering a better service. Yeah. But then something else might happen. Yeah. And then customer satisfaction is not going up. So you're like, oh man, my initiative didn't work. Yeah. But it did. Yeah. It's just not as bad as it could have been without that initiative. Yeah. So that's a huge challenge in regards of measuring people topics. Yeah. So I guess I see that when you say it's something that's really challenging in getting people to think differently about making investments in that area. Because I see it
too. Yeah. And how valuable the investments are. Absolutely. And not just in the long term. There's actually so much you can do in a very short time frame to really improve. Yeah. And, oftentimes it's also not associated with a huge spend or changing your whole, employee value proposition. Yeah. You can really start with a few basic elements, which are going to make a huge difference.
Absolutely. And it's not for people being happy clappy club, singing Kumbaya all day, but it's really for the bottom line.
Totally.
So the economic results
are
really there. Wow. I think we're... on top of our half hour. Oh, yes. We're way beyond.
Well, let's keep on talking. This is so much fun.
It's fun. Awesome. So, I would say it was packed. We touched lots of things. Investor journey, your mission-driven product and how it evolved over time, how well a founding team can actually work together. Yeah. And how you then naturally translate it into company culture. Lots of different stories that you shared. I really appreciate it. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for giving me the platform, giving Tadah the platform.
Absolutely. And if you want to learn more about what Tadah actually does, how you can benefit from their services and offers, their products, we will put links down here. You can connect with Klara. You can find out more about Tadah, or you can learn what I do and how you could work with the People Kickstarter. Send us an email or whatever works for you best, and we'll be happy to talk to you. And if you enjoyed this video, give it a like, share a comment, send it to someone who might benefit from it too. Subscribe to the channel for future releases. And thank you so much for staying with us on People and Culture Stories. See you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.